Squirrel Jokes is SpongeBob's 31st episode of Season 2. It aired in the US on September 14, 2001. The episode starts with Mr. Krabs opening an after-hours comedy show at the Krusty Krab. I imagine just to make a quick buck. The show starts out strong until SpongeBob comes and does a routine about salt shakers and tomatoes, only to hear crickets and the audience start to heckle. SpongeBob quickly starts to panic and has to think of a good joke on the spot. He quickly points out how big Sandy's teeth are and makes a joke about that, which the audience finds mildly funny. Now this is mild racism towards someone who is a non-native. He keeps going with the squirrel jokes until everyone in the whole restaurant is laughing their tail fins off. Except for one person, Sandy. After SpongeBob is done wrapping up his act, he goes backstage, only to be praised by Mr. Krabs for his routine. He is invited back next show as the headliner, which SpongeBob is understandably very happy about. SpongeBob runs into Sandy backstage and asks her if she liked the show, only for Sandy to understandably confront him about how she didn't enjoy the show and that the jokes he told were hurtful. SpongeBob convinces Sandy, telling her that they are obviously jokes and that everyone knows she's the smartest one in Bikini Bottom, and this calms her anger. He goes on to say that everyone needs to laugh at themselves sometimes. The scene ends with her agreeing and that maybe she was just being a little too sensitive. This is an example of the victim confronting the sender only to be convinced that it's okay and that they're only jokes and not meant to be serious. Flash forward to presumably the next morning where Sandy is just running some errands at the grocery store. She quickly notices that literally everyone is making derogatory jokes at her and hiding their freaking children from her just for being a squirrel. Sound familiar? She is visually angry and upset at the sight of everyone being rude to her just because she's a squirrel. Sandy comes in, again telling SpongeBob that everyone that he's been telling the squirrel jokes to has been treating her very negatively and that the comments that they are making are very hurtful. Then Patrick comes in and has an honestly really funny scene. He then starts talking to Sandy really slow, like she's really dumb, which is pretty ironic that Patrick is the one saying that of all people. She points out that what she was just talking about just happened. She kindly tells SpongeBob once more to lay off the squirrel jokes and tell some new ones, because they are obviously affecting her negatively in her day-to-day life. SpongeBob agrees, but then quickly realizes that he is out of ideas and has nothing else to go to. With the crowd chanting his name, what does he do? He goes out there telling really bad jokes that only Sandy kinda supports him through. Eventually, everyone is chanting for him to tell some squirrel jokes, and he's faced with a terrible decision: keep his friends or his career. And he goes with the latter, in the most over-the-top, derogatory way possible. He tells Sandy that everyone loves the jokes, and that everyone is laughing with her and not at her, but Sandy isn't laughing. She is understandably pretty mad. He goes backstage to find a letter from Sandy telling him that the jokes are actually funny, and to come over to a tree dome tomorrow to celebrate. SpongeBob is relieved that he gets to keep his friends and his career. SpongeBob comes over to the tree dome only to see that Sandy has become a walking stereotype. This shows SpongeBob visually how everyone else sees her, and what he has painted her as with his racist jokes. She is a walking visual representation of a stereotype. Her actions, the way she talks, and especially her appearance represent how vastly incorrect the stereotype is from the reality. While in character, she forgets that SpongeBob needs water to survive. Now yes, this is a bit extreme to get her point across, but it's justified considering what SpongeBob did to her with the racist jokes. SpongeBob eventually gets what she's digging at and agrees no more squirrel jokes, and he learns his lesson. It cuts to the crowd at the next show cheering SpongeBob's name. SpongeBob starts off by saying a squirrel joke, but this one works because it's more of a reference to the old racist jokes than being an actual racist joke. He then goes on to say that the only thing dumber than a squirrel is a sponge, which the crowd doesn't exactly get at first. He repeatedly makes fun of himself for everyone's enjoyment. He even makes a dig at the crowd, including Mr. Krabs, for being cheap, which works because he's making fun of Mr. Krabs specifically, not crabs as a species. Saying Mr. Krabs is cheap and saying that crabs are cheap in general is the big difference here, instead of the hate being directly solely at Sandy. This last scene accurately shows the difference between a harmless joke directed at someone and an offensive racist remark that hurts people's feelings, intentional or not. The episode ends there with everyone loving his new jokes, including Sandy. This episode is very smart with its subtle meaning and message. It gives a pretty well and accurate story resolving around racism and racist jokes. So thank you guys so much for watching, like and sub, and peace out.